Alright guys, we're back on this tutorial today. This one's going to go over texture mapping, simple texture mapping. We're going to do a couple of pleating techniques, and we're going to do some of the other type of stitching. Yes. Alright, well, let's get onto it. This is the same pillow we have from before. What we're going to do now is we're going to delete some of these stitchings. And I did do a mistake last time. I was clicking this button when I did it. I do believe now I can click this. Actually, let's see, escape. I can click this surface and see it's selected. And then I can click that button. And then I can go over here and flip around. And I know I want to stay to that same side. So it's going to show me where that stitch needs to go. So when we go back out to the top, you can see it stitches in the right direction. That's going to be very important later. So now the next thing we're going to start talking about is different forms of stitching. So we have that stitch that we just did right there. Now on this side, we know that we could do possibly 2 stitches on there. So this one sitting next to it is the free sewing stitch. So we can click this corner here. Alright, so we know, okay, so we know that that's this side. No, excuse me, that's the wrong side. Remember, F2 will zoom into the object and it will arrange it. I'll actually go over these real quick too. So F zooms in. When you have things highlighted, it will zoom to the object. Okay, so you can have your rotation point to the center of those 2 objects. 1 is perspective. 2 is front, 3 is back, 4 is side, 5 is top, and 6 is side. And I think that's it. Yeah, so those will become helpful later, but for now you'll probably won't need to use them. But back to the stitching. We're on this stitch, so now I'm all backwards, so we need to know, okay, so you know this is picked over here. So I know I'm starting from this point over here. So I'm going to click on this corner right here, and I'm going to draw it down. You see the numbers on here? This is very important. If you hold down shift, it will, I don't know what the shift is doing that. Anyways, but the number's very important. Maybe that's something new. I don't know what shift is doing there. And let's see. Let's say if we just do 700, okay? Now, what we're going to do is you're going to do the same thing in the opposite. Remember, it's the opposite side. So you know now it's this button. So you see now we know where it needs to stitch on that. So we're going to start at the top and go to the bottom. And when we start at the top, you see this numbers down here in the red? It's telling you the differential between the 2 stitches. When it goes to blue, and you see it locks on that same size of stitch. So we know they're equal now. We don't have to do them equal. See, it even gives you a little blue dot where you need to go. So that tells you that equal stitch. So we're just going to go ahead and do that equal. We're going to highlight again as you see that bottom portion opens up. Okay. So what we can do is we don't have to stitch it all the way. We can do the same methodology on the bottom. Let's just hold down Shift to see what that does. And we did it at 5. When we click that other one, you see the other portion at 5. We're going to click that and see, there we go. And so now you see that we haven't stitched it all the way, but maybe we say, well, you know, we wanted it to go all the way. So what we can do is we can actually grab that stitch and increase its size on either side. Just drag it up to that new dot and it will fix that for you. Okay? So this way, I want to leave it open a little bit, show you a couple more things. For instance, if you go over here and you click the fabrics again and you add a thickness to it, it doesn't always do this in the renderings, but occasionally you can see it. When you export it, you'll see that these actually have thickness. So when you export that object out, it will have the thickness that you give it. Now proportionally, we're working architectural sizes, so you have to adjust this thing in your head for that kind of differential. Another step we can do now, say we want that a little thicker, but not without adding thickness. We can keep just layering that what we can do in there, and we say clone over. And so what that's going to do now is it's going to create 2 more layers on top. So essentially we can take one of those top layers, grab a button out of it, and drag her out. So as you can see here, well, with this one it's always going to snap back in, as I told you before. But with see, now you can drag that out, and you can drag the other one out. Oh. And you can start to see that there's 2 layers inside of there. And essentially, if we change our views, which I'll go over right now, what we can see in our views over here is multiple different things going on. First, it's showing you what's being shown on each view. These aren't really showing much, so we can take stitching off. So it takes the stitching away. You can take buttons, you can take everything else off. That's not as important for us as this. We can change the rendering settings for that, so you can now see there's an object inside of this. So we have basically a pillow, but there's an object inside the pillow, so a pillow inside of a pillow, which is kind of more interesting than just a pillow. What we also can see is that in wireframe, you can kind of see what's happening. You can start to adjust what's happening. This, you can see the things in tension. As you can see, the inside is not as tensioned as the outside. But then what we can do is we can start to adjust that outside sleeve to where it needs a little more help on its particles. So we can readjust that, and what it's going to do is soften up that interconnection between the two. And so you see now that outside one is a little more able to handle the polygons on the inside, because you've increased the polygons. As you can see here, that's increased the polygons quite significantly. As you can see on the inside ones, it's not that intense. Alright, so now what we can do is we can start to adjust the texturing. So you don't have to keep these on the top though. Realize that over in this panel situation over here, that it does not matter where these objects are. Once they're sitting in 3D space, they're different from then on. We can also do, which I'm also kind of interested in. Let's decrease the inflation on that, and we can squeeze those top ones up to where it's squeezing it together. That's not as good as I thought it would be. Let's return to something else. There we go. Maybe they can inflate a little more. That center pillow just kind of can float. Okay, so let's look at texturing. Texturing is fairly easy. It's like you've probably seen before. We go up here at the top. We can add a texture map directly right here. You just pick it. There's some default ones. Let's go find. I think I have some nice striped ones somewhere in here. Probably an area I don't particularly want to go look at because I just finished this competition, but let's go get it anyways. Here's the black striped ones. So what you're going to see, that's on the inside. We need to do on the outside. Iode. Let's see. Go to work. Aaron Mazzy. Let's get some of those stripes. The stripes look nice. Now they're fairly large. I do believe we can adjust the size of those. Here, texture transfer. We can lower the texture transformation They're fairly large right now, so let's drop it down to 100. That's too small. 300 sounds good. By 300, I like them a bit of an angle. Let's go 60. Now that should show up over here, but doesn't look like. Let's see, texture. Refresh textures. It doesn't seem to want to show my textures here. It looks like it's not activated. Let's do display, material, show 2D textures. No, material, show 2D textures. Garment. Render style, thick textured surface. There we go. Now we're starting to actually see the textures inside. It looks like these two objects are flipped. So what we can do, we can flip horizontally. That did not do it. And you see that I've messed it up slightly. It should adjust itself to fit back into its normal capacity. I think also that we have ghosted on. There we go. Now we're kind of seeing the way it looks. It's a little messed up, so as you can see, sometimes the flip to there doesn't work. Now, another way to fix this is you can turn off the simulation and pull it back a little bit just by hand, and that can start to adjust those problems that seem to occur fairly often. Alright, of course you have stuff like this that's happening up here, but what you can do is you can remove. They're a little hard to remove over here, so I always tend to remove them over here. And so you can start to adjust those back. Yeah, it's a very diverse program, so you're always going to get some problems with it not working the way you wanted it to. So you just remember, it's like early Maya. You just got to keep messing with it until it works for you. I mean, it's the only way that you can do some of this stuff. So okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start to work with some of the text or the pleating, but we're going to pause it real quick. Oh. Nothing like cooking and modeling together. Alright, so I think for this tutorial we're just going to go over holes, and then we'll go into stitching in the next, pleating and stitching in the next tutorial. So first things first, let's look at how you draw on the object. And we turn this off. Our outside objects here are going to be the ones that we're going to be pleating, these two ones in the bottom. So basically these three here are how you draw on the object. So for instance, if we just draw just some normal pleating or all-round stitching, what we can do is start to copy that over. This one's called a all together, I'm going to call it. I forget the term off the top of my head. So basically what that means is you're going to draw from here to here and here to here. This is very much the same technique that's used on curtains, at the very top of curtains. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that, and as before we're going to mirror paste it because we want it on the other side the same exact way. So we're going to copy it over that. It's got to be within there. So as you see, it's on both sides. We want to do both sides before we hit the simulation, because what's going to happen is it's going to do it at the same time. We want equal balance. So as you see here, it starts to pleat together. We're starting to form kind of a wrinkled surface there on the top. Okay? With the op art kind of thing, it's got a little weird kind of look to it, doesn't it? Is that because we have the ghost on? No, it's just weird. Okay. And now we can do the same thing. Since we already have it drawn, we can do the same thing to the inner. Ooh. Well, I guess that's the end of this tutorial for today. As you can see, Marvelous does have some problems. On the next one, we'll go over some other stuff.